Hello, my very dear Virgos. This is your reading for the week of May 26th, or whenever you hear this and it resonates. So, of course, this will not be for everybody within the Virgo collective. But what I started hearing when I was getting ready to do your reading was a chorus out of a song. And it's not the entire song, I think, because I checked out the lyrics. So it's not the entire song that's relevant to you. It was the stanza, "You say that you cared, but I was unaware." I think it's Teddy Swims. And that's the feeling that I'm getting with this, Virgo, as I tune into the energy, is that some of you, it feels to me, are looking back over something in your life, over some kind of relationship that you had, whether it was romantic, friendship, family, where you're looking back over it and you're going, really? Really? You cared? I had no idea. And it's that sense of, well, was it because you were, is it that you were unaware because you were just not receptive to it, you were not seeing it, you were not able to feel it? Or was it because whoever says they were loving you was loving you in a way that was relevant to them but not to you? You know, the 5 love languages or the 4 love languages. But also just in terms of, for some people, being very controlling and very domineering is a form of loving. And for you, that might have been like, no, can't do it. But there's often times when it's just simply that when there's concern on a general level about being able to trust, if that is something that has come up with your childhood, that trusting love or trusting that somebody can be loving, genuinely loving, is when you can't do that, when you grow up with that mistrust, then it's very, very hard to see it from other people, even if it's genuine. It can really bring up the sense of hopelessness about whether or not anybody can be trusted, whether or not you're ever going to be able to open. And I'm thinking specifically about a story of somebody who had an incredibly loving mother to him, but to his half-sister was absolutely vicious. So that, I think, created for him a lot of conflict around trusting. We were talking about a little kid and his mother, right? This can create a huge mistrust around women and their ability to love, or whether or not they're going to be fickle or turn, whether or not it's genuine. And that's just one example, right? What I feel here is you're really, either you are looking at it or you're being asked to look at it within the context of how you can change it, how you can create a new style of life for yourself, a new relationship pattern for yourself. Because it feels to me that for those of you who I'm reading for, there is a sense of almost isolation. That, and again, now I'm getting the betrayal card, I'm getting the hopelessness card, I'm getting childhood card. It's like, okay, so, and now I'm getting the can't and won't, which is again a card I relate to with childhood. It feels to me as though you, in some ways, you may have been paralyzed by that sense of betrayal, by that sense of not being able to trust in such a way so that now as an adult, you're finding it very hard to open up to new things. And what you're being told here is you are capable of opening up. Can't opening is child. And if that's what you're feeling, then that's a pretty good sign that you're being triggered by something old, something from, if not a childhood situation, an early adult situation, I would say, where there was real loss, real betrayal, a real sense of almost shock and surprise at how you were treated in a situation. Now, this sounds all very gloomy, but what you're getting here is also the indication that you do have the power, because you have the ability to say can. And now you've got the ability to choose. This is very much about you clearing and cleaning away whatever old stuff from the childhood situation that caused that sense of hopelessness in life or hopelessness around love, partnership, connection. Because again, connection doesn't just happen in terms of romantic relationships. It can happen in terms of friendships, in terms of relationships with your children or other members of your family. This would be something I would say to really look at. If you're somebody who at this point is feeling as though you don't have the kind of connections that you want, you're being asked to really check into this, because if you're feeling hopeless about it, what you're being told is it isn't hopeless. Hopelessness is an attitude that gets triggered from past situations in which we tend to have felt powerless. So what you're being told here is you have the ability to create something new. You have the option. You can make choices. Choice is where your power is. That it's no longer a situation of can't, it's won't. And if what you're feeling is paralysis, like I can't open up, I can't open up, I can't open up, don't force yourself to open up. But now what you're able to say is, no, I won't open up. I'm choosing not to open up. Now that completely changes the energy around whatever situation you're in, right? It's a choice. Once you make a choice, you can make another choice. But if you say, I can't, from that position of I can't, you can't make a choice. Unless your choice is, yes, I can, but do I want to? Okay? So that's, if you find yourself stuck in I can't, change it to, yes, I can, but do I want to? And then whatever you go from there, if it's a no, that's fine. It's still a choice. This is about you being able to choose beyond old triggers from childhood or early life experiences that have left you feeling disconnected, hopeless about love, about life, about connection, and that these are all patterns that you get to choose, that you get to change. But it's difficult to change a pattern until you see it. So for those of you who find yourself reflecting or reminiscing, this is your support and encouragement to say, reflect, reminisce, but reminisce from a point of view of prayer. What does that mean? In this card, I like this because it's really talking about actively praying or invoking the support of a divine presence, or just letting your mind and actions reflect an attitude of, or acceptance of, or the possibility of a higher power which is there to guide you. Okay? Now, this is so important because whenever we're reminiscing or we're looking back over situations, especially if they were disappointing, there can be a tendency to get pulled into that heavy energy and for it to go into, if not hopelessness, just that sense of lethargy and doubt about possibility of change. By maintaining that attitude of divine presence in whatever we do, when we are aware of that presence simultaneous to looking back over the past, we automatically lift the energy because divine presence is like the max energy, right? So by doing it that way, it's the equivalent of being able to say, okay, I'm using this time now to look back over the past, to see what my patterns were that helped create this sense of difficulty in making connection, in finding the kind of connections I want, whether in love or friendship, whether it's in spiritual connection or work. It's whatever is holding you back from being able to move forward and create a life that is based on positive choices rather than old triggers. Okay? So if this is coming up, this is actually a good thing, because if it's coming up now at this point in the world and in your life where you're looking at making transitions into different ways of being, this is brilliant. This is saying, okay, this is where some of the triggers are that hold you back, that create that sense of powerlessness, that sense of I can't. This is where you get to look at it and shift that energy, okay? Now remember, if it's an I can't, change it into yes, I can, but do I want to? From that place now, you're making a choice. And even if your choice is not to change it, it's still a choice. And that's empowering, okay? Because as soon as you make one choice, sometimes you'll say, yes, for example, I've used this example before, yes, I want Thai food for dinner. And as soon as you say it, you realize, no, you don't. Then you, great. No, you know what? I've changed my mind. I think I want Vietnamese tonight. And so it gives you the option. Once you do make a choice, there's always another choice. And often it's only by making a choice about something that you get to see, you get to decide that that's not what it is you want. So that is, you're being asked to exercise your choice muscle, right? Start experimenting with things like food. To realize that can't and won't. Can't is the language of a child, won't is the language of an adult. When you're stuck in can't, that's usually when you're triggered from something in the past. That's usually where that sense of heaviness and hopelessness and is it ever going to change, that powerlessness comes in. You're being asked to look at your patterns around that. And remember to invoke divine presence and realize that you have the ability to create things in a very big way once you let go and clear out many of the things that are holding you back from past events, old ways of thinking, old defenses that are in place regardless of the situation, and that you get to now remove them and apply only defenses that are relevant at the time that they're needed. So you get to work with boundaries, not barriers, okay? People understand when you got boundaries. They also feel it when you got barriers. So if you're operating with barriers because you're in a defense position against everything, that's going to create a certain energy around you. That's going to make it more difficult for people to connect and for you to connect with people. So consider these things in terms of how you can shift it with choice from barriers to everything to negotiable boundaries. And that's where I'm going to leave you this time. Virgo, I hope that's been helpful. Take care.